Burnout is a syndrome of emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced personal accomplishment that occurs among individuals who frequently overexert themselves in their occupation. Simply put, burnout is feeling physically and mentally exhausted by work to the point where the employee no longer possesses the desire or even the capability to perform their job at a quality level. Early signs of burnout to be on the lookout for are exhaustion, being drained of your mental, emotional, and physical resources, cynical detachment, a depletion of social connectedness, and inefficacy, a depletion of belief in oneself. The toll of burnout is on more than just the employee. It results in worse performance, inhospitable and unsafe work environments, and more resources being consumed to deal with the higher turnover rates. We talked with Dr. Eean Crawford from the University of Iowa Tippie College of Business.
Every employer would tell you that every time I lose an employee, it's a huge cost of my own time in terms of recruiting and hiring and training a replacement. So, the death by 1,000 cuts. It's slow and painful. The World Economic Forum estimates that burnout costs employers in terms of turnover and lower productivity somewhere around $322 billion a year. A stack that would go from sea level to almost the International Space Station's orbit in space, 205 miles high. So it's a staggering amount of money. Why give your employees time to rest and recover? Well, it's costing you huge amounts in hidden turnover and lower productivity that you're not measuring. While you're measuring time of people on the clock, what you're not measuring is how their productivity is dropping, and every time someone leaves your firm, the incredible cost that it takes to replace that person. So yeah, there's a significant impact.
With average work hours increasing over the past decade, and the digital revolution changing the way we think of productivity and making the connection between work and home life more fluid, cases of burnout will only get worse and more frequent as time goes on.
It takes a lot of proactivity to intentionally leave work at work. Part of it is just the general breakdown of boundaries, the convenience of having our digital lives with us everywhere we go. I don't know that anyone intentionally said, I'm going to let the boundaries blur between my work and my home life, but it just has kind of happened, and I think reasserting those boundaries is important. It'll take some conscious re-establishment of boundaries. And I view a boundary as it's a useful device to manage your expectations and the expectations of other people. A boundary just helps people know what to expect from you, helps yourself know what to expect from you. Before doing that, it's important to let people know when you can be reached and when you can't. Employers will do this. They'll tell employees, as a matter of company policy, you should not answer emails after 6 p.m. or you should not answer emails on weekends and holidays. That's a great practice that employers just set the expectation for everyone. Now, people can differ in how they carry it out, but that gives you autonomy to know, past 6 p.m., I don't have to check my work email. In other professions, you might just have to do that yourself, where you inform colleagues or those you work with that I'm available for communication or meetings in these hours, and I'm unavailable for these hours. And you just make those expectations public so people know what they can expect. Boston Consulting Group is a huge consultancy that works in very high-paced industry, lots of demanding clients. They've always assumed that their team members need to be available to their clients 24/7. And they've done experiments with their consulting teams where they have forced employees to take days off in the middle of the week. And they were so against it, so nervous about my client's gonna think I'm not there for them, we're gonna lose business. And reluctantly, they agreed to do this experiment because part of their consulting business is helping companies figure out how to operate more efficiently and more effectively. And so they decided, well, we should do the same ourselves and do a test to see if we can operate more efficiently and effectively ourselves. And so on a team of 5, they would have one member take a day off, completely off, not in range, not in reach, not answering emails. And they found that their employees came back more refreshed, and their performance actually improved because they were taking regular time to rest and recover. it just is a shift in boundaries. I think reasserting boundaries of when you are available, and when you are, be available. And when you're not available, people know, and they won't bother you. They'll respect your boundaries. So it takes some public action of letting people know what your boundaries are, and then some private action too of just regulating yourself. I heard a friend the other day say, when we come home, we put our phones in a basket by the front door and leave them there. Or others that say, I don't charge my phone next to my bed at night. I charge it in another room, and then I go to my bedroom to go to sleep instead of to scroll through my phone for another 2 hours. And better sleep is better rest, it's better recovery. So there's very public actions and then very private actions you can take to reassert the boundaries we need to not be connected 24/7.
The population prevalence of exposure to long working hours increased substantially between 2010 and 2016. If this trend continues, it is more likely that the population exposed to this occupational risk factor will expand further. Potential reasons for this include expansion of the gig economy and subsequent uncertainty introduced, and new working time arrangements such as on-call work, telework, and the platform economy. Past experience has shown that working hours increased after previous economic recessions. Such increases may also be associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Important steps an employer can take to manage and alleviate employee burnout is to promote a healthy workplace culture that promotes self-efficacy and consistent periods of rest and separation from work.
Culture is built up over time through thousands of small decisions made every day in a company. So it can be hard to change a culture because that would require thousands of other decisions to be made in a regular, consistent way over time to change a culture. But I recently heard a new definition of culture by organizational psychologist John Amaechi that really stuck with me. He said, your culture isn't defined by the mode or the most common behavior. Your culture is defined by the worst behavior tolerated. If you really want to make a difference in your company's culture, start with what is the worst behavior that's tolerated, and don't tolerate it anymore. Put an end to that. So if it's this notion that our employees have to work around the clock, that you have to answer an email within 2 minutes, otherwise you'll get a subpar performance review. Ask yourself, is that part of our company's culture really necessary? And even if you think it's necessary, do an experiment and try to change that. And stop tolerating the very worst behavior. That's where I would start with any change to culture. So if you think about maintaining machines, the best maintenance you do is regular, predictable, and planned. You don't wait until something breaks down to finally address a problem. The same way with employees. The best type of rest and recovery and detachment is regular, consistent, and planned. And so I try to work in periods of about 50 to 90 minutes, and then I'll step away from the screen in the office and just take a walk, even just a walk down the hallway and back. And then on a larger scale, like when you leave work, it's important to leave work, to psychologically detach. So some shifts have people 48 hours on, 48 hours off. Some work for 36 hours and then have 36 hours off. So whatever time off you have, it's really important to psychologically detach. If you wait until you're burned out to recover, that's more like the machine that's broken down and needs to go offline for a much longer time for maintenance until it can come back online. You can work a terribly ineffective, waste of time hour, or you can work an incredibly effective and productive hour. What really determines productivity is the amount and quality of your focus and energy invested during any specific hour worked. We just have to let go of the idea that the number of hours worked is any meaningful indicator of our productivity and move towards more results-oriented measures of productivity. What you care about most as an employer is people doing their jobs and doing them well. Your rested employees will be better employees. So give people the time and space they need to psychologically detach because they will come back better. The quantity of hours worked might be lower, but the quality of hours worked will be higher.